Hello everyone, I'm aReNGee of aReNGee Eternal Fame, and some of you may already know me, and those of you that haven't or are just joining us at the advent of the open beta, welcome aboard. It's great to see all of you here. Um, I apologize for any background noise you may experience. I'm trying a bit of a different setup at the moment, so there may be some issues. I'm doing this video as an introduction to drafting for players that have never drafted before. The prospect of playing multiplayer against other players is quite daunting, especially when you're not exactly sure what kind of deck you're going to be ending up with. But drafting is by far the most efficient way in order to expand your collection, and something that every new player should dive into at least once. You won't be able to access this main screen of the game until you've completed at least the fire section of the campaign, but it's not necessary to complete the full campaign before you can play the other four modes. Casual mode is not yet enabled. I know many players have asked about this. This is not a mode that has been enabled at any point, and the button is just there for spacing at the moment, I believe. Once you finish the campaign and received your rewards, you can't go back and replay it, which is why it's grayed out for me. For many of you, it will not be. Now draft, your first one is free. There will be an extra button in the middle here that says free, but for most of you, it costs 5,000 gold every time that you play. Now this seems like a lot, but the rewards for draft are great. That's the equivalent of 5 packs, and you are guaranteed 4 packs worth of cards, plus 2 silver chests just for playing. And the rewards scale up from there greatly. So you get almost, I'd say about 4.5 or 4,500 gold worth of value just for signing up. So even if you don't win any draft games whatsoever, or you resign your draft immediately, you've just about got your pack value back, and you usually get better cards than you would in packs because you're able to choose them, so you're not limited to the 8 commons, 3 uncommons, singular, rare, legendary. So once we've got our free draft, or we've got the 5,000 gold available, we click the draft button and we hop into it here. Now, there's no rush going on here. Drafting is not performed with any other players. It's just you, and there's no time limit for any of the packs, so you don't need to rush through anything. If you want to, you can leave, click the home menu, close the program. The draft will still be there for you to come back to later in the time. So there's plenty of time for you to leave, think about things, and consider your best options, although apparently that graphic plays every time. There are a number of alternative resources out there for drafting, and as well the Discord channel for Eternal is a good place to go to if you have questions about choosing between specific cards. But as a new player and very beginner drafter, the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at the rares that you have, especially if drafting for collection is your primary concern. You're going to want to be taking all the rares that you don't actually own out of every pack so that you can expand your collection. So here we've got a Frontier Jito, and I don't have 4 of those, so I'm going to take it. Now we're here in our second pack, and there is no rare remaining. Again, we have as much time to consider as we'd like, and we can think about what cards we'd actually like to choose out of it. Stormcaller's a pretty good card, Illuminator's a good card, and Towering Terrazon are all reasonable choices. I'm not really considering my first pick here since it was just a rare draft, so I could go down any of these routes. Rebel Illuminator's fine, Stormcaller's pretty good, Terrazon's pretty good, but this one's only costs a single color. You can go any of these choices. I think any of these picks are fine. I'm going to go with the Illuminator for the moment, not because I already have a red card, but because it's only a single red, so it's easier to ensure that I actually end up playing it in my deck later on. In draft, you want to stick to 2 colors, and that means you really want to be an allied faction so that you can take advantage of powerful multicolor cards. Now, the 5 factions that we have are Fire, Time, Justice, Primal, and Shadow. And the combinations are Fire and Justice, Justice and Time, Time and Primal, Primal and Shadow, and also Shadow and Fire. So here we have a Shadow Fire multi-faction card, and it's a pretty good one, and it works quite well with our pick here of Rebel Illuminator. So if the Illuminator dies, we get a torch from it, then we can bring it back from Smuggler's Stash to play it again and get another torch. So since it combines quite well with our first pick, is a powerful multicolor card and a signal that the people next to that we could go into the Fire Shadow faction, I'm going to take it here and look for good shadow cards to go with it. Here we don't see any particularly exciting cards. This isn't a great card. Um, these cards aren't in our colors. I personally commit to colors fairly early in the drafts. Other players stay quite open. I find for newer players, especially since you're going to be rare drafting when you can, it pays to take a lot of cards of just two colors to stick them together because card evaluation can be quite difficult. Telling what cards, when it's correct to switch colors can be quite difficult, whereas committing, you're guaranteed to end up getting into a deck that has enough cards to be playable, even if it's not necessarily the strongest deck that you could have drafted from that position. Um, as this is a power-based game, we do have sigils that we need to play in our decks. We're not going to be guaranteed to have all the colors available all the time, which is why I really recommend that you stick to two colors. So here I'm going to take the Shadow card to go with our Fire Shadow deck that we've got going on here, and avoid looking too hard at the other ones. See, here we've got an example of this Dormant Sentinel is a reasonable time card, and this Cobalt Acolyte is quite a powerful um, Primal card. Primal time does not really combine with Fire or Shadow particularly well, although Primal Shadow is a quite reasonable color combination to be in. However, I'm not really interested in pivoting, as I do have this fine run-of-the-mill Fire card here that I'm going to take. The rest of the draft, for the first part, should be fairly similar to the first couple picks. Again, you always have as much time as you like to consider. And if you see a card that you need for your deck for constructed, don't hesitate to take it out of a pack, even if it is something that you don't want. You can always edit it out later in deck building. Alchemical Blast is a bit of an exception to the normal faction rule. It is a factionless card, so you can play it in any deck regardless of what colors you are in. And it's a pretty good choice to pick up. It does deal 2 damage. It is a fast spell. So picking up a card like this is good if you find yourself light on removal. When you're drafting decks, you're going to want to pay attention to these here. These aren't exact numbers, but these are curve numbers. You want to make sure that your deck sort of has a spread of values. If you have all of your cards costing the same amount, you will have difficulty making sure that you can cast all of them on time. And that was actually a mistake. Sorry, I'm just accelerating through the draft here. It's important to make sure that you have a good drafting curve, and making sure that all your cards aren't in the same spot. If you have all 2-drops, yeah, you're going to have a lot of 2-drops, but you're going to have to choose which card to play from your hand on turn 2, and then on turn 3, you're also going to play a 2-drop. You can play 2-drops on turn 4, and that's okay, but your card's power is going to be a lot less than your opponent that's playing a 4-drop than a 5-drop. And if you've got all 4 or 5 drops in your deck, you're going to have a whole lot of difficulty playing more than one card a turn. So here, once again, I don't have 4 copies of this, so since I'm drafting for collection, I'm going to take the rare. Same rare, same thing. Not even really looking at the rest of the pack. And here we have no rare, so we're going to look here. We already have one of these. I'm not the biggest fan of this card. So we're going to take a higher cost 4-drop that works well with our Smuggler's Stash. Smuggler's Stash does ask that you draft weapons, so I'm going to be looking out for those. And taking a high-end Finisher. Removal spells are quite powerful in draft. Anything that says kill a unit is usually pretty good, even if it's expensive. You want to have access to you want to be able to interact with your opponent's units beyond the battlefield, so you need spells to back up your units. You need powerful units in order to actually contest the board, but you also need powerful spells in order to disrupt your opponent and push your guys through. Suffocate's very good in the early game, kills anything with less than 3 power, which includes everything up to 4 drops, so I'm going to take it here. Ghost Form is a card that some people like to enable infiltrate effects, which I don't have any of at the moment, but the card is not very good, so I'm just going to take another scheme. Here we have our option of an aggressive 1-drop or a potential removal spell, and I'm going to take the removal spell for now because we don't have a particularly aggressive curve with a large dearth of 2-drops. Ruin kills attachments. Attachments are weapons, curses, relic weapons, and relics? Yes. So I don't have any of those at the moment on hand, but know that this is not a particularly good card to main deck and draft, and as there is no sideboard, it's not really what you want. Here we're going to pick up that Alchemical Blast, and there. I don't actually want that. The rest of this draft will be on autopilot as I skip through it in order to get us to the deck building stage. Here we have a weapon. Pronounce not that good. Okay. Only shadow card. Another weapon. Very good card. Curve. Fixing. Not in our colors. Okay. So here we have the deck building stage. Again, as with the previous parts of draft, there is no time limit here either. So if you want to, you can go back to the home menu. You can go play around. Oh, sorry, it'll take you to this page. You can go back to the home menu. You can do whatever else, and you can come back to it later. You won't be able to actually play anything until you've built a 45 card deck from your cards that you have chosen. Now, by default, only the factions that you had in your main deck while drafting will be shown. If you just put everything into your main deck, it'll look like this, and you'll have all the cards in there. But all your cards are available. If you want to see all of them, I usually just uncheck everything and look through. But here we're trying to create a fire and shadow based deck, so we'll select those in there. Ruin is not a card that we really want. Frontier Jito is not particularly good, so we're going to cut those out. You want to add and remove cards from your deck until you have about 28 to 26 cards. You need to play power in your deck, and you have all the basic shadow sigils, or all the basic sigils that you want available, and you can add power to add up your deck. 17 to 19 is usually, or 16 to 19 is usually a good range, with 17 to 18 being the norm that's played in most decks. So you want to cut your cards down until you have those. If you have a lot of 5, 6, and plus drops, you're going to need those 18, 19 sigils. But if you're mostly in the 2s, 3s, and 4s, you're probably going to be fine with 17. You don't want to draw too many of them. Now, a great way to figure out what your decks look like is you click this button here, and it takes you to this expanded view where it has a whole bunch of deck stat breakdowns. It's telling you how many units, attachments, spells, powers, and the influence that you have. So we're split almost evenly fire and shadow. So splitting our fire and shadow influence makes sense. We've got 17 power, which is nice. And we've got reasonable curve. We've got a glut of 3 drops, but I think that'll be okay since 2 of them draw into our higher cost cards. Should help us find our smuggler stashes for late game value. So there you have it. Once you're satisfied with your deck building choices, click done, and you'll be taken to this screen where you can play your game. Unlike Forge or Gauntlet, here it's 3 losses until you are out. You do have a point at which you end the draft. For every win, you get an additional chest or chest upgrade. The first win will grant you a 3rd silver chest. Then the next 3 wins will upgrade those to gold chests. And the final 3 wins will upgrade those to diamond chests. Once you have won 7 games, your draft will end and you will be able to claim your draft rewards. If you lose 3 games, your draft will be over, unfortunately. However, you will then claim your rewards. Every card that you've drafted, you hold on to, which is why the rare drafting is applicable. And if you are unsatisfied with your draft or you would rather do something else, you can go into the options menu here and click Resign Draft to end your draft prematurely. You'll be able to collect your rewards and start over if you wish. Now, as with every other aspect of draft, in between games, say you played 3 games and you've gone, 1 and 2 perhaps, and you want to go play ranked or gauntlet or whatever else you want to do, you can still, again, return to the home menu. The draft will be there waiting. There are players, I am guilty of this myself, who walk away from drafts for days, even weeks, before they come back to them. The draft deck will still be there for you. So, a final caveat for those of you that have not already changed it. If you are not able to add power to your draft decks, you will need to go into gameplay and check advanced deck building to enable you to customize your power cards. Otherwise, it'll do it for you. It mostly does a pretty good job, but a lot of players want more control over the power in their decks, so there's that option there. The final point of drafting is have fun with it. You know, this is a fun game mode. Everybody else is playing with their own draft decks that they've been able to assemble, and they're not going to be super high power necessarily. So you're all on the equal footing. So do your best, have fun with it, and as you work at it, you will improve. And this is by far the best way to expand your collection. So you're going to be doing some amount of drafting in the course of your Eternal career. So I hope you enjoy it. This has been a basic introduction to drafting. I hope I've sort of explained to you how the drafting system works and given you a leg up in terms of how to actually go about it. I wish you all luck, and I hope to see you all playing Eternal very soon.